The most difficult things we all can do from today going forward is to believe that we can change and we can determine our own future. That the power to change is in our own hands, not outside us. Like we have the power to change. Like Jim Rohn says, for things to change, you have to change, because every human is like a seed from the beginning. You have everything that you need to flourish as an adult. Les Brown said when he started his speaking career, the most difficult thing he has to go through was just to believe that he could do it. Not actually doing it, but just to believe that him that's come from a different class, a different places, different society can actually make a difference in the world, that anyone will be willing to listen to him. Some people always say, like, why do I have to listen to you? Why are you road mapping? But you have to understand, like, there are different peoples in this world. Where I've come from, that's not where you've come from. My experience is different from your experience. Your experience is different from another person's experience. So there's always someone out there in the world who is going through the same thing like you, who would go through the same thing like you, and who has gone through the same thing like you. So you don't have to reach out to everyone. You don't have to please everyone. But there are people out there who are waiting to hear from you. Like people who are in the same position you were a few years ago, that they are thinking about giving up. They're thinking about throwing in the towel. But then they realize that if you made it out, if you change, they could change. If you can make a difference, they could make a difference. If you could start thriving, start living instead of just surviving and existing, they could do the same. But then they want to know, how did you do it? What did you do? What was the changes you made in your life that took you from that box and put you outside of the box? So just be or do that which you need to do. Don't think about what people are going to say about you, criticize you, laugh at you. Work on yourself. Jim Rohn says, work on yourself. That's all you need to do. Become better than you were yesterday. There's so many competitions out there. People, wishing they had someone other person's life, but forgetting that person has his own backstory. That person has gone through some difficult times and good times. So the best you can do is to work with what you have. They say we have just, at least for now, just this one life. So you might as well make the best of it. Some of us, our biggest problem is we don't actually know what's impacting us. Our hopes and dreams are destroyed, tarnished. And in place of having hopes and dreams, we're put in a place where all we think about is, where is my next meal coming from? How am I going to eat today? How am I going to survive today? How am I going to have shelter over my head? So when you're in that situation, of course, you're not able to think properly, because your circumstance looks so surmountable that is your priority. You see, I was listening to Jordan Peterson the other day, and he was saying something about play. The simple play, like when kids play and when even adults play. Like in every human, there is the ability to play, the ability to have fun. But that emotion of play is suppressed by every other emotion. So that's why a child would always cry when it's hungry. A child would always do everything. And a child would only play when they're happy and they are free of pain. So that same thing that goes through child to our adult stays with us. It's in our DNA to suppress play with every other issue that's going on around us. So that's why when we're going through obstacles and difficulties, we're not able to think properly. And so because some people have understood this concept, they put you in a place where all you think about is, where's my next meal going to come from? How are my kids going to eat today? How am I going to be able to pay my house rent? How am I going to survive today? Oh, the landlord is kicking me out. So if you're constantly in that place, there's no way you're going to think about, is someone taking advantage of me? Is someone paying me how much I'm worth? Is this my value? Because value is determined by demand. So if you're in a place where you're constantly thinking about what you're going to eat, definitely you're thinking you have no value. And because value is demand, and when someone understands you have no, or makes you believe there's no demand for your value, then they can do whatever they want with you. So when you begin to understand that the things that are keeping you where you are is really in you or around you, but mostly it's in you, because the power to change really comes from you. Jim Rohn says for things to change, you have to change. So the power to change your surrounding has to start from you. Jordan Peterson talks about tidying your room. And that's a very small thing, but that means like at least, starting from the inside out, cleaning yourself up, having a shower. Those are little things, but that is just a focus on you first. So for you to change anything outside first, you have to change what's within. And so that's where that tidying your room comes in play. Have a shower, comb your hair, brush your hair, look presentable. So for you to change, first you need to identify what is it that's keeping you where you are. What is it that built a fence around you? What's the box that you're inside that you can't escape from? These are the things like you have to sit with yourself and try, to identify these things. Do you need more skill? Do you need to work on yourself? Do you need to educate yourself more? Do you need to brush up on your language? And even just, do you need to clean yourself up? Or do you need to change friends or move to a different area? Some things are visible to us, or some of the other things are really maybe invisible to us. But as every human being, you have to identify what is it that's really keeping you where you are. Is it like, are you where you are for self-interest or for other people's interest? Are you working to give yourself, your family, your generation a better future? Are you working or participating in the promotion of others? And then when you identify, then you can now start to fight against these enemies. You can now start to fight against these enemies. Most people always think about spirituality in whatever they can see. My belief is, of course, we all have a different belief, but your own spirituality is what lies inside of you. Like, if you can't fix yourself, you don't need to appease any god of any nature, but you have to understand yourself, your shortcomings. Where do you need to improve on yourself? If you start working on these things, then you start seeing things changing around you. To go for a job interview, you need to update your CV, brush it up. You can't just keep turning up at different interviews with the same CVs. So like, when you start understanding what you need to work on, what you need to improve on, what you need to brush on, what you need to keep doing to change your life, then you start understanding you. See, when you start understanding these things that are destroying, your sense of being, your self-belief. And when I talk about self-belief, that's if there's any left, because with the current climate, so many people's self-belief are destroyed, are tarnished, are broken. So for you to begin to pick up what's left, but now is a new beginning. You have the opportunity to use, or at least learn how to use the power within you. Learn how to use the power within you to overcome, to turn over this heavy tank that's placed in you, this cage that's placed in you. The traps that put there to hold you down, they all inside of you. They all within you. Because there was a time they used to say, ignorance is a bliss. But actually, ignorance is a tragedy. What you don't know would enslave you, would work against you, would hold you down, would keep you where you are. Why? Because people who know what's keeping you there are going to use that in their advantage. As human beings, from many theories I've gathered over the years, it's human instinct to dominate. They say every human has a line. There's a line of good and evil, and people will keep pushing until there's a resistance, until you push back. And that's why sometimes they say it's better to growl so people know you can bite. But like, you don't have to bite, just growl when it's enough. Sometimes it keeps people off. It tells people like, look, I might be timid, but I would bite when it comes to it. So it's good to start understanding. Are you working towards something to enhance your life, to enhance your family's life, your children's life, your generation's life? Or are you working to enhance someone else's life? And I promise you, like, most times, the person you're trying to enhance their life, they're not your neighbors, they're not your friend. These people are remote from you. We may seek motivations and others to lead us, like pep talks. But the truth is, we all know who we are, or at least we should try and find out who we are. We should all start fighting to discover who we really are. And how do you do this? Listening to your inner voice. Because when it's all said and done, when everyone has gone home, when it quiets down, when the crowd has gone home, you are left with yourself. That is who you are. And that is who you should listen to. We all know when we bow to make or take a good or bad decision. We all know this. Sometimes we push and go against it, but most time we all know. There's a theory that between 0 and 5 years old, we determine what we can do and what we can do. We determine our perimeters, our boundaries, and we try and see if we can push the boundaries. We understand our limits, and then these boundaries defines us. So many of us grew up operating within these parameters, or we end up operating within these parameters based on the boundaries put there, by those who benefit from us not realizing that we practically been put in a box. And even when these boundaries have been removed, subconsciously we feel safety within these boundaries. And that's why sometimes you release people from jail, they run back to jail because they feel safety in that chaos. They feel safety where their life is restricted. They can't fully operate in a wider world where there's so much freedom for them. And people begin to wonder, like, why would you go back to jail? That's because that has become part of them. That's all they know. They feel safety in that environment. And this happens to us without actually knowing. Most of us run back to some sort of relationship, and other people, onlookers, are like, why would you go back to that? But to that person, that's all they know. They've been operating in that perimeter so long, they can barely function outside of it. They know nothing else. And we even see this sometimes when some victims get attached to their abusers. And to a layperson, you might be like, why? Why would you, after all they've done to you, why would you? But the mind has been set, and you can only, there's a quote, I don't know who this quote was attributed to. It says, you can never see, or you can never perform in life better than how you see yourself. Sometimes not actually how other people see you, but how you see yourself. So like, you've set a boundary for yourself. You could never operate outside that boundary. It's like you've placed a glass ceiling there for yourself. Like, that's where you feel safety. You could never get close to the edge because you feel threatened. So some people ask, oh, why are you still behaving like this, living like this, dressing like that, saying different things and acting like this? But for the person who's trapped within that box, that's all they know. Like, there's the elephant in the circus. Like, you might have seen this in the circus before. An elephant, a massive elephant, being controlled by a man, or being tied to just a pole. And the elephant has got the strength to pull off that pole, but they've been attached to that pole since they were little, when they didn't have the power to pull off that pole. And so they tried and tried and tried, but they couldn't change anything. And so they took on that identity that's them. They could never pull themselves away from that pole. So even when they become a full-grown adult with 50 times the size of that pole, their mind is still back, stuck in that baby state. They might have developed physically, but mentally they're still back at that baby state. And so this is what happens to a lot of us adults. We're still stuck in that parameter that was set. So it takes strength and courage to move ourselves outside of that box. And the strength and courage starts with you seeing yourself differently. When you start to see yourself as a person of value, as a person that could add value to something, when you start to believe that you can make a difference, that you count, that your decision counts, your action counts towards something, that you're not just a passerby, you are there because you are taking up space and you have something to contribute. And that takes years to get to that place. Jordan Peterson talks about being consciously dangerous or unconsciously dangerous. And most of our biggest problem is we are unconsciously doing what we used to do, even when that doesn't apply anymore. Even when you don't have to, like, you unconsciously just do the same thing. Some people like me, even on my off day, I would wake up by 6 o'clock because I've been programmed to wake up at 6 o'clock every single day, regardless. Even when I'm on holiday, I still wake up at 6. Then I might try to go back to bed and sleep for an hour or so, but I've been programmed to wake up at 6. So most of us will subconsciously do things. Like, if I'm driving to the supermarket, there's the longer route I always take. So even when I've discovered the shorter route or the shortcut, subconsciously, I still go through that long route. I only discover I've taken the long route when I get to the supermarket. And I'm like, oh. So we do a lot of things subconsciously without thinking about it. And we need to take time and think, like, why am I doing this thing? Who is it benefiting? Who am I working for? Am I working for myself, or am I working for the greater goal? Or who am I actually working to better their life, to enhance their life? So to change something, we need a conscious, self-determined, self-imposed, deliberate effort to think outside of our current situation. Like I said before, your current situation would suppress anything that would drive you forward. Some people say hunger has been weaponized, poverty has been weaponized, and all those things have no power on you. But because of the way we're created, all those things will suppress your ability to think straight. And that's why sometimes some people they're starved, because they understand when you are hungry, the first thing you think about is eating, nothing else. If not, why would someone give you food as a source of bargain with you? Like, if you value, or if that person sees you or believes you want more than that food, why would someone offer you food? Just food. For your value. Einstein says, like, the thinking that has brought us this far has created some problem. So whatever we've done up to this point, however we've thought up to this point, the thinking that has brought us this point has created some problem. That same thinking can't fix it. So we need a new sort of mind, a new sort of vision, a new sort of form. We need to look forward in the future. We need a new set of thinking. So we need to break out of that shell, out of that box, out of that cage, out of that boundary, and start thinking where we are heading to. We need a new thinking with a vision of where we need to be. We need to discard, we need to cut off the thinking that has held us back from where we have come from. The thinking of our history, the thinking that has kept us in the dark. We need to break that shell and start building a new thinking, a new vision, a new destination, a new home. Sometimes in psychological practice, I'm not a psychologist, but just reading from, a lot of psychologists like Gustav Carl Jung, Nietzsche, Freud, they all say the same thing. They might disagree in different fields, but they all say one thing. Like, to overcome your fears, you have to expose yourself or your client to what they fear. I mean, gradually, not just like in one big blow, but gradually you have to expose them to that which they fear. And through that, they would find a new version of themselves, one which could survive all of those fears, one which could survive outside their comfort zone, one which could handle their fear in a different way and still function properly. So, like, we've been put in place where we're so scared of all the things because like our problem has become so big that we cannot see any way of overcoming it. But that's only because we're thinking the old way, we're thinking with the old system, we're thinking with the old brain. Why? Because we're thinking from where we've come from a place where there was parameters, there were boxes, there's boundaries, there was, we're kind of put in the dark. But we need to be thinking about where we're going. That thinking needs a new brain, a new vision, a new thinking, a new idea, new people. So you need to cut loose of fear of the past, what people are going to say, how we will feel, because other people's opinion of you really, up to this point, has become your reality. Because you act in a certain way, you perform in a certain way, you display in a certain way, you talk in a certain way, you live in a certain way, all to please some set of people. Because why? That's what they expect of you. Exactly that. That's why someone would offer you food to bargain with you, because they believe that's all you are worth. Because if they believe you want more than that, they would offer you more than that. But because they can see that they've put you in such a place that all you think about is your morning meal, all you think about is your night meal, all you think about is how do I eat today, how my kids gonna eat. So therefore, your whole problem is just food. You see, they could take the word from you and just offer you a slice of bread, and you'll be fine with that because you think, there's no way you could get that slice of bread. Or you're just thinking, let me just eat for now and then I'll think later. But later, you put back in that same position, in that same situation. So the brain of the past needs changing, needs a new direction, needs a new thinking, needs a new play. So this is where the power of play comes in again. Everything suppresses play. Hunger, especially hunger. That's why they say sometimes, oh, he's hungry, he's not thinking clearly. And they mean that, they literally mean that, because when you're hungry, you don't think clearly. You just think about food. And there's this a proverb, they say, only he who is eating properly cannot think of adventures, cannot think of exploring. Why? Because when you're hungry, those are secondary to you. As human, it's enough to think about our survival first, self-preservation. So when you're in state of hunger, all you think about is how do I eat to survive tomorrow, today. Tomorrow will take care of itself if I can eat today. So the power to change is in you. We are all born just like a seed. In every seed, they have everything that makes a seed into a full-grown tree. You see, so you don't get what you want in life, not because you don't wish hard enough, or not because you don't work hard enough, or not because you're lazy, but you get in life what you are. Exactly. You get in life what you are. So if someone is offering you food, that's because they've not seen you more than that. They actually haven't valued you more than that. That's why they've offered you that. No one will offer Bill Gates food for his favors, or Jeff Bezos, or anyone they see above that. So that's why comes time to campaign, comes time for election, people will rush down to different places they will never go and offer you food. Why? Because they don't see you more than just that. They don't see you more than just being a hungry, living, destitute person. That's the only reason someone would offer you food, because you have no value more than just food. Food that you take it in one direction, it goes out the other direction. So if someone is offering you food and you know what happens with food, you take it in this way, it goes out that way, therefore they're not seeing you more than that end product of the food. Sometimes we need to build something for the future. Sometimes our experiences alone might not be able to guide us or lead us to where we want to go. Our thinking enough might not be strong, because of course we all are started, we all new at something, we have to learn at something, and when you're learning something, you're bound to make multiple mistakes. And so that's why sometimes you have to search out for like-minded people like you, learn from them. In most places, they're apprentices. You learn from the boss. You can't start today as an apprentice and want the salary of a boss. Why? Because you don't have the responsibility of a boss. So you could start learning by associating with people who know better than you. But let it be people who have the same direction as you. Let it not be people who want to utilize you, use you for their own self-gain. Because it's inhuman to do that. Most people start with good idea to work towards something, and later they change. Because human and power go hand in hand. We all want more than we have. Of course, some are willing to work more, some are willing to get it through different ways, but we all have one sort of hunger in us in one way or the other. Les Brown says, we are born unique, but most of us die as copies of other people. Why? Because we're trying to be like another person, we're trying to do what they do, we're trying to live like them. but we don't know their backstories. We don't know where they've come from. We don't know what challenges they've overcome. We don't know what they are currently going through. Many of us are convincing ourselves we couldn't lead the better life. We couldn't break our glass barriers. We couldn't live outside a bracket or a life bracket. We couldn't do so many things because we've convinced ourselves that we're not worth it. We don't have the experience. We feel very uncomfortable in those sort of areas in our lives. We can only start to achieve things, get better, grow, develop when we have a vision of where we need to be. When we start having a roadmap of where we need to go. When we start believing that we are actually that which we want, and we're willing to work for it, and we'll prioritize it over every other thing. Most people are good at doing just one thing. So it's not like you have 1,000 other things to do. If you pick one goal and go after it more than any other person, you're bound to succeed. It might not be today, tomorrow, but as far as you keep pushing, as far as you concentrate, as far as you keep working on it, as far as you're not giving up, your experience will count someday. Because why? Through consistency, you're going to become better day after day. The person, a lot of us are last year, we're different from that person now. Why? Because we've grown, not just age-wise, but through experience-wise, through understanding. It's like every 100 miles you walk, you could see the 100 mile clearer. That's true experience, and that's true activity. Because what's the activity? You've stayed consistent and the action is working. So if you haven't made those steps, you'd never see the other 100 mile clearer. So because of you've taken the effort, you've imposed in yourself to make the sacrifice of taking that steps. Now you could see clearer. Now you can understand better. Now you know why. So always hold yourself accountable. Always trying to find a way to go after your dream. Go after your dream, self-imposed. Despite the setback, despite your situation, despite your circumstance, despite where you've started from. A lot of people today who are doing things outside this world, some have come from places worse than where you are today or where you've come from today, but they keep striving. There's something pushing them. So in every one of us, there are something there that's pushing us. There's something there that's driving us. There's something there that we want to go to. There's something there that we believe we should be having, but we are not. Why? That's because we've not really wanted it. Because they say if you really want it, you would find a way. It will keep you up. You would go after it day after day. A lot of people know today they failed their way to success. One of such persons, like we might not know, is Emerson. 1,000 times. Imagine failing something 1,000 times. But he failed his way to success. John Maxwell says failing forward, that's when you fail and you learn, you experience, and you move on. There's some tennis players who have been into finals like they lost in the final 7 times in a row, but they've gotten to that final. So after that, even Andy Murray, he lost 2-3 finals in a row before he won his first one. That's failing forward. You learn from your experience. You learn what to do and what not to do. A lot of people, some are born with silver spoon. Some have gone to the best primary school, the best secondary school, the best universities, and they've just worked their way into the best jobs in the world. But that does not determine how far they're going to go in that job, in that role. That they've just bought, or the parents just bought them access into that role. But if you have that same determination and you found yourself in that same place, that now is a starting point for every other person, you and them. Where you go from there is based on your own ability, your own drive, your own personal will. And as they say, you get not what you desire, but what you are. You can only change the world outside you from within you. Because when you start to change, things around you start to change. Try and look into yourself to find something that will challenge you to push the boundaries, that will challenge you to go to the next level, that will challenge you to make impact in and around you. They say one person can be a hero. In all the movies you watch, you see one person, there's always one hero, and that hero can be you. That hero can be you in your own movie. I think it's time to stop being extras in your own movie. It's time to be the hero in your own movie. Many of us want to contribute. Many of us want to leave a legacy. Many of us want to live a life that outlives us. But there's very few people in the world who are doing that. Hate them or love them. There are very few people. And like they say, what you do for yourself dies with you. But what you do for others outlives you. And so this is the only time you can contribute and make something that is going to outlive you. Go, whatever you do for yourself, when you die, is done. The other day, we seen last week, the Queen just died. The Queen of England just died and was buried. But on the back of that, there were so many tweets and so many, people with different opinion from different side of the perspective, just different side, different angles, and she affected a lot of people differently. So that is a legacy, depending on what side of the train you are. That's a legacy. So what you do that impact other people would outlive you, but not what you do for yourself. So when you have the opportunity to contribute, when you have the opportunity to do something that's going to change someone's life, that's going to change people's life, that's going to contribute, that's going to push people forward, you have to take that. You have to put yourself in a position to take that. Why? Because you can only give what you have. Someone wouldn't come and offer you food if they believe you are worth more than that. A sack of rice, a sack of beans. If they believe you really worth more than that, why would someone offer you that? And that's for you to know that the person that's offering you that believe that they put you in such a place where that's your priority. Like every other ability you have is suppressed by that hunger, and so they've put you, or they've become the savior. Horseman says we should be ashamed to die until we've made some sort of contribution to humankind. Like we should be ashamed to die until we've made some sort of contribution to humankind. And going forward from today, what's your legacy going to be? What's your contribution going to be? Like we can be a superhero in our own life. Like you don't even have to go far. There's like 5-10 people around you. There's like your neighborhood, your community. What change can you make? What difference can you make? Who can you bring around and say, look, we think together. I think we should work for this. I think we should fight for this. Not every hero is celebrated, but some heroes, without those heroes, without those individuals, the superhero will never have time to focus on doing what superhero does. Because without those other supports taking down the little barriers for that superhero, he might not actually prevail. So, like at this juncture, we all need to play our part. We all need to give our best. We all need to contribute, not just for ourselves, not to be selfish, but for the good of everyone. So like every day when we wake up, like what is it we could do that could change our lives, the lives of those around us, those yet unborn going forward? What is it that we could do? Like some of us have would lead a life that was given to us. Even some people have gone out to change it themselves. But if you can change the life of those who are yet to come before you, I believe we've been living a life that's been given to us for so long by the circumstance surrounding us, by the people who are surrounding us. They've made you to believe that this is all you are worth. Some bag of food, some bag of rice, some bag of beans, that is your worth. There's a book by an author called Sidney Porter, and he says, like, when you take a walk with someone, it's either they adjust to your pace or you adjust to their pace. So that's a kind of unspoken language. So it's either you've been adjusting to someone or some set of people's pace for most of your life, or they've been adjusting to your own pace. So now, like, that's your decision. You know what sort of pace you've been on. Like, for the past 10, 15, 20, 30 years of your life, is this the pace you are happy to be on? Have you been going at the pace you're happy to be going at? Or someone else constructed a pace that you've adjusted to? And if you adjusted to someone else's pace, don't you think it's about time you decide how fast or how slow you want to go? It's totally up to you. Like, the world, the field, the grass, the road is right in front of you. It's up to you to decide how fast or how slow you're going to go. Like, it should be based on how your heart would carry you, not determined by an external factor. And this is basically what's been happening for most of our life. You've been walking or going at a different pace, the pace imposed on you, the pace that you've come to believe it's actually yours, not knowing that pace was put there by those people around you for you. There's a saying that, I don't know who this quote came from, but it says, like, since you have stopped thinking, you've just been doing. So because you've not been thinking, you've just been doing, people around you would think for you. They'll think how you walk, how long, how fast, how slow. But they will never think of you. So you have become a tool. You're there to just fulfill a service. You're there as part of a means to an end for them. So they will think for you. Definitely they'll think for you. But they'll never think of you, how it affects you, how it works for you, how it works for your generation, for your family, for your kids, for those born. They will never think of you, but they will think for you. So for how long has people been thinking of you or for you? Who have you allowed to keep thinking for you? Or have you ever for one day stop and say, this person, have they actually thought of me as me? What works for me? What I like? What I don't like? Or have they constantly thought how I fit into their life? So many of us in life, we pick up something, either be a religion, either be faith, we pick up a lot of things. We tend to like stake alive on this, thinking we're doing this thing because it's our choice. We're doing it because we believe and identify by this thing. We're doing it because we live by it. But there's a lot of things that have been put and placed around us by those whose pace we've adapted to. But we tend to think this is our choice. But we've just been programmed to think in this way. We've been programmed to function in this way. And this program, they don't have to come to you. The situation, the economy, the circumstance have programmed you. Just like when it comes to the order of play, most things in your life have been suppressed by the basic things, like just your food. Like I said before, a child will never play that's hungry. Like every other emotion will suppress hunger. And that's how we adult is. Every other problem will suppress your ability to think properly. So the thing is, like, every single day we wake up, we are actually choosing. But we're actually choosing between a very limited program that's placed there for us. So if you don't have a plan for yourself, the program that has been placed there for you, you just end up doing those things, not actually knowing they've been put there for you to do, thinking these are your own free choices. It's like when you've put in a place where you're given an option of two choices. A is go and B is go. You end up choosing B, which is exactly the same thing as A, but then you thinking you've made a decision for yourself, not knowing both decisions are actually the same, and none are yours and none actually works for you.